This episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is brought to you by the Laying It Down for Camp Bucko fundraiser being put on by the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. With local partners Wallace Kent Sprinkler, Troy Life and Fire Safety, Greater Toronto Fire Protection, Lamstar, and Joseph Hullage, with major provider of the fire hoses being brought to you by the Toronto Community Housing, we are well over the 63 kilometers required to break the world record. We're putting off the world record attempt until spring to allow for more donations to come in. www.firesprinklerpodcast.com for more information on how you can donate. Camp Bucko is the burn camp for kids of Ontario. It's open to burn survivors between the ages of 7 and 17. The camp has grown to over 70 children attending the week-long camp in August. There's no fee to attend Camp Bucko, and we'd like to keep it that way. Hoses are $20 a length to sponsor right now. All proceeds going to Camp Bucko. Thanks for your support.
Like and subscribe.
Welcome to the Fire Protection Industry Affairs Summit. I'm here with Chris Logan. Chris, thanks so much for agreeing to be part and coming on here and to share your knowledge, skills, and experience with our audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, about who you are, how you got started in this business, and what you're doing today?
Hey, awesome. Thanks, Aaron. First of all, it's super weird being on the other side of the conversation at this time, not trying to direct it. So I apologize in advance if I start doing that, trying to take over. My name is Chris Logan. I'm from the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. At the time of this recording, I started this at about 4 years ago, just because of a lack of available content for the industry. Like I said, I've been doing it for 4 years. I have subscribers and listeners all over the world, and it's kind of really blown up a lot more than I was ever expecting it to be. It's been an awesome ride. I'm based out of Southwestern Ontario, Canada, Corunna, which you've never heard of. But yeah, it's great. It's a nice small town, and I live here with my wife and 2 kids.
What led you into podcasting? What do you have a background in the sprinkler industry, right?
I'm a third generation sprinkler fitter. I've moved into the design and project management side of things now. I call myself a fitter in a golf shirt, because I still am very, hands-on as far as work's concerned. I still get out on the tools every once in a while. If our family business is extremely busy, I get out for inspections and stuff like that. Not really spinning wrenches too much unless it's a service call, specialty service call, as much as I'd like to anyways. But yeah, it's all over. It's all over the map.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, in a few minutes, I want to get right into the podcasting and what you do and kind of the really practical application of that. But I have a few questions first, kind of leading into that. So in general, what are some associations or groups that you're involved in, and what kind of value do you feel you get from being part of those things?
So I try to stay involved with as many associations, essentially, that'll have me. I'm involved with the Society of Fire Protection Engineers. I do a lot of stuff with NFSA. I've been involved, and I've done stuff with AFSA as well. And then I'm a member of CASA here in Canada as well.
What does CASA stand for all of us non-Canadians?
All the non-Canadians, it's the Canadian Automatic Sprinkler Association, and it's comparable to NFSA here in the States. Okay.
I see you have a couple designations. You have a CFPS and an RSE. So tell me a little bit about the CFPS, tell us what that is, and a little bit about that process and kind of what it took to achieve that.
So the CFPS is the NFPA Certified Fire Protection Specialist. It really doesn't mean anything in Canada. It was more of a personal challenge for myself. Just wanted to get kind of the alphabet soup behind my name because, like I say, I'm a sprinkler fitter and I do design. So here in Canada, as long as an engineer stamps your drawings, and I'm sure it's the same in the States, as long as an engineer reviews and stamps your drawings, anybody can draw a sprinkler system essentially. But I just wanted, when I'm doing consulting and stuff like that with my family business, I wanted to have some credentials behind my name so people knew that they could trust the work that I'm doing. The Certified Fire Protection Specialist, I took the online training portal that they offer through nfpa.org. And it was really, really good. I studied really, really hard for not as long as I should have. But it was really good. It was a really, really, really tough test. The RSE is Red Seal endorsed, and that's your national sprinkler certification here in Canada. So that essentially means I can travel all across Canada and install sprinkler systems, service sprinkler systems, and things like that. Basically, all that means is I got a certain percentage on the national test.
All right. So I kind of asked about the CFPS because that's my goal this year is to get that and do that. So I always ask people how they did on it and how they did it. So the online, the virtual kind of training was pretty good. You felt like it gave you the tools you needed to.
I felt the online portal was very, very good. Being a sprinkler guy, there was some things in the online training that just as a sprinkler guy, you notice upright sprinklers in the pendant position on their digital things, just little things like that that I pick up on. The most difficult part for me as a sprinkler fitter at heart was the fire alarm aspect, and that's only because I spent my entire apprenticeship not caring about fire alarm, and I kept telling myself, like, I'm a sprinkler fitter, I don't need to know fire alarm, I don't need to know about fire alarm, and it's ingrained into my head that I don't care about fire alarm. And it's really annoying now that I'm trying to get more interested in and broaden my horizons. It's difficult for me to get involved with fire alarm stuff.
Yeah. You have that subconscious mental block going.
That's what, yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with fire alarm. I love fire alarm now, but when I was a kid, I just ingrained into my head, right? Like the kid who doesn't eat peas. Why don't you eat peas? Oh, they're disgusting. And then when you get older, you like peas. You don't hate the taste. You just hate the idea of liking peas.
That's right. I think like the mental health doctors, I think they call it conditioning, you know. So you have to just you have to get reconditioned. So that's for a different podcast or a different show, right?
That's a whole different series, I think. Digging into my brain, that's a whole other series.
Those people could probably make a whole career off of fire protection people, you know. So off of us.
Dr. Phil, do you have Dr. Phil's number? We could probably there's a whole series for that, season 67 or whatever he's on.
That's right. That's funny. So let's kind of pull it back to what we're talking about here, our topic here. Thanks so much for sharing so much so far, especially on the CFPS and those designations. And I liked how you kind of talked about, what's important about them. Kind of, a lot of those are intrinsic value, right? You wanted to get that so that you had that, and so I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that is what makes a big difference in when you're working towards those goals, right? Is the intrinsic value of it. So, can you maybe give me an overview of the Canada fire codes and the process for fire codes in Canada?
So we use the same standards in NFPA 13 and NFPA 25 as the US. The difference is Ontario has the Ontario Fire Code, which is it's a standard that there's a lot of issues with it, and it's been kind of the bane of my existence since I've really been involved in the industry. It takes a lot of things from NFPA 25 and says, do this, 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 and this. NFPA 25 is also acceptable. So it dumbs down a lot of things that are required in NFPA 25 and adds things such as are sprinklers obstructed? That's a very vague request to have in a standard, and you're expecting sprinkler fitters and inspectors all across the province, which is not a little province. I think it's larger than Texas, I believe. I had this conversation with Joe the other day, Joe Meyer. But there's things. It's a little bit behind in a lot of the way that the places in the U.S. and all over North America are doing things, but the possibility and the talk of changes are coming, and I just hope that they can kind of catch up with the latest standards and stay current with the standards, because fire protection evolves every day, because construction evolves every day, and if you're not evolving with the industry evolves without you.
Yeah, right. So that kind of brings you to another question. So you just said if you're not evolving with the industry evolves without you. How would you recommend that a company keep evolving with the industry? What's the top thing that they can do to
train your guys, and constantly train your guys? The big thing, and I knew it going into creating this podcast that I've started, was that guys in this industry like to do things the same way that they always have. And that's the most dangerous sentence in business in general, is that's the way we've always done things. Technology changes, constructions type changes, the codes change every 3 years, and if you're not staying current with how things are being done, somebody else is, and you're going to be left in the dust. Because the idea behind there's a lot of companies out there that are trying to evolve the way fire protection is done. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't, but the name of the game for our industry is to get sprinkler into more and more buildings every day. And if there's a way that we can save 15 minutes of sprinkler, it's not taking away from the labor and from the manpower, which a lot of the fitters are thinking. And that's the mentality is, oh, you're taking away manpower hours. I guarantee you the next building is waiting for you. You've just got to get off that job as fast as possible and get to it. Right. That's how we keep costs down, is getting, keep cost of installation down so that more buildings are being sprinklered. And it's a cycle. As always, it's always an ongoing cycle with fire protection is get it in and on to the next one, right? Because in the end, the cheapest guy is always going to be the guy installing the system. And if we can get trained guys installing the system for cost effective ways, you're going to be the guy doing it. So training, that's how you stay trained. Constantly train your guys.
What's kind of the state of trained, knowledgeable technicians in Canada for this type of work? Is there a real need for it? Do you kind of feel like things have evened out a little bit, or what does that look like?
I mean, from the business side of things, because I also work for my family business that was started by my grandfather 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago. Wow. There's never enough manpower. There's never enough skilled, trained manpower. If you're union, if you're non-union, we're a union contractor. I'm a union sprinkler fitter. And there's just not enough manpower out there to install the systems that we need. And that's allowing your competition, either union or non-union, to get in here and to do the things that you're not willing to do if you're not willing to train your guys.
So in your role with the sprinkler company,
yep,
what are some things that you've done to try to attract good workers?
Well, money helps. Number one.
Yeah, for
number
sure.
one, right? But just being involved in the industry, because money obviously drives a majority of the manpower and the labor out there. Everybody wants to make the most amount of money that they can, because it's not just a money in the pocket thing. It's about what they're able to provide for their families as well, right? It's not greed. It's providing. My kids can either play baseball, soccer, lacrosse all summer, or they can only play baseball or soccer, or lacrosse, right? If you can give them the option to play all of those with money, their kids are going to be happier. They're going to be happier. The wife's not going to be on them. The dad's not going to be on them. The husband's going to be on them, whichever way you go. Right. Yeah. It's just essentially paying your guys what they're worth. And I think sprinkler fitters across North America are some of the highest paid, but I think the most earned paid, the hardest workers out there. The stories go back to my grandfather installing pipe, and there's general contractors that would tell me back in the day, your grandfather used to get on the main lift with his lunchbox, or get on the scaffold with his lunchbox, and he wouldn't come down till the end of the day. Eat lunch up there. That's just the way he worked. That's the way guys worked. And it's still the same. Sprinkler's the hardest working industry out there. And it's, just keep it up, and staying trained helps with that. Yeah, I think that's it. Like it's obviously a financial thing, but if you're offering other incentives, like, everybody wants to be the best at everything. And sprinkler is a really, really kind of headstrong industry where everybody wants to be the best at everything. So if you're able to provide additional training outside of, you've got fitters that do warehouses only, but give them the training on the CPVC or the Blaze Master or the Spears or whatever product you're using, give them the training on different types of systems. Make them better at their jobs, because that's going to make them want to work harder and do more for you.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for sharing. I know you talked about that work mentality of taking your lunchbox up to the scaffolding and staying up there all day. There's always a lot of talk about, oh, these millennials, they don't want to work like that anymore. Do you see that, or do you think that's not in our industry, or do you think that maybe it's in between somewhere?
I mean, it depends if any of my guys are watching this right now. I do see it. But it's a matter of getting into the mentality of, instead of trying to find, because we have guys working for us that have been from my grandfather's era, when my grandfather was older and he was a kid, and now he's my grandfather's age and I'm the kid, right? I'm 33 years old. I do see a difference in the not workmanship, but the mindset,
work ethic, maybe.
Yeah. Instead of trying to find a solution to a problem. You're trying to find a problem to a solution, right? Like, I tell my guys, don't call me with a problem unless you already have 2 ideas to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another way you're going to keep, number one, your job and keep working. Um, don't call the office or your project manager or your designer or your engineer with you got me piped into a wall. What do I do? Go around it.
Yeah.
I can go over it. I'm clashing with the ductwork. What do I do? Go around it. Go over it. Go under it. What do we do?
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know. You're there, right? Give me a solution. Don't give me a problem for every solution. Give me a solution for every problem you bring with.
Yeah. Solution based. I like that. So, well, thanks for talking about that. I think that's something important in our industry is hiring good people, finding good people, and how to do that and keep them. So thanks for sharing that. So I want to kind of pull us back to talking about the podcast and kind of what that's all about. So I know you said you've been doing this for 4 years.
Yep.
Before we started recording, I said I think you're the godfather of fire sprinkler industry podcasting. So would you consider yourself to be an influencer in the industry? And if so, what is an influencer to you?
Oh, I hope not. I like being the guy that people kind of look to for information and stuff like that. I like that. That drives me to stay current and to train myself and to learn more about the industry every day. I don't know if I'd call myself like an influencer in the industry. I do get a lot of messages and emails just like, hey, keep up the good work. People use the podcast as a primer on their way into the office, on their way out of the job sites, as like these are the things that are going on in the industry. They may not be getting it from their businesses, from their bosses or whatever, but it's a way for them to stay current with kind of the latest technology and stuff like that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm an influencer. I would say I do a mediocre at best product within the industry, and I happily have kind of led others to get into this industry and create their own podcast that I can listen to, because that was the whole reason I started the podcast, is that I had something fire protection based to listen to and to learn from. The idea was hopefully to get it going for a couple of years until some other people started doing it, and then I could just back off and go back to just listening to essentially talk radio or podcasts in the car.
Yeah.
But now I kind of fell in love with it. It gave me a great opportunity and a soapbox to kind of stand on and talk to the smartest people in the industry. It's been silly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many interviews have you done? How many episodes are you up to, or interviews have you conducted so far?
So I'm at episode 72 right now that are released, and you can find them on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, YouTube. I've been working on a lot more video stuff lately. So every episode that I release now, I also do a video along with it. So you can kind of see the people I'm talking to, and if they have any products, they can kind of demo the products and show me stuff like that. And then I'm going to start working on a little bit more of my own content as well, tool reviews and stuff like that. It's a learning process. I've gotten to the point where the podcast has a certain level of quality to it. It's not just me sitting at the kitchen table anymore, talking to myself. So I don't want to start over again at the low level of content. I want to come up with like a good product for when I start doing video stuff that's not talking to people.
Awesome. No, I appreciate your podcast and the work you do in that. I've gained a lot of value from that and been influenced by it, actually. So thank you for that. So with all you've been doing this for 4 years, you've interviewed over 70 people. What kind of value have you gained from this podcasting experience in these interviews?
It's I mean, for lack of a better, it's dumb. It gives me the podcast gives me the opportunity to talk to some of the smartest people in the industry. The industry is one of the nicest industries out there, depending if you're an apprentice or not. But I'm not saying that a lot of people out there, the guys like Hasudoshi, the creator of the hydraulic calculation, if I didn't have this podcast or this soapbox to stand on, or the opportunity for him to share his story, I don't think that he would sit on the phone and talk to me for 45 minutes about his life story. Right. Not too many people would. So it like I said, it gives me first access to a lot of new products that come out in a more thorough learning about the new stuff that comes out, right? Because I could read the same articles that are in the NFSA magazines and CASA magazines and AFSA magazines and stuff like that. But you can only get so much out of a 2-3 page literature, right? To have a question that I can ask somebody and get an answer immediately is a huge benefit. It's good. I just ask the questions that I want to know. If it's I have a lot of people on that want to teach people about their new products and stuff like that. And all I'm doing is asking questions that I want to know, right? If you're interested in the things that I'm interested in, you're going to love the podcast. If you don't like the things that I'm interested in, it's probably not for you. That's, you know what I mean? It's, but that's, being a designer and a fitter, I hope I ask the questions that you're wondering as well as soon as you see something.
Yeah, oh, awesome. You usually do, when I'm listening, I say, "Oh, I hope he asked." Oh, there you guys. He asked.
There it is.
That's what I was wondering. Perfect.
Yeah.
You do that well. So how does this? I almost want to call it. The question is, how does this side project impact your day job? But I don't know that with the volume of podcast work that you're doing and what you're putting out, if it's really a side project much anymore. It might be just your main project. But how does this podcast impact and influence your sprinkler business and that day to day?
So the benefit of working for a family business is I have the opportunity to kind of schedule the podcast around the people that want to contribute to it. So if you want to have a conversation at 2 p.m, I can work my schedule around it, right? I try not to take too much of the company's time because it is still a business that we're working. But it does give me a little bit of flexibility as far as making sure that I can still complete a project on the side, so to speak. But it has become not so much a part-time project or a side project, but there's still 10 to 15 hours a week that are getting put into putting out the episodes and making sure that the social media page is still going and stuff like that. I don't think it impacts my work schedule because I love what I do. I love sprinkler stuff. I love fire protection stuff. So I always am wanting to do something with sprinkler. If it's at home, if it's everything's at home. I'm working from home now, so it has an impact because it gives me a lot of credibility in the industry now. Every once in a while you're talking to somebody from the city doing a plans review and I'm like, "Oh, Chris Logan, I listened to a podcast by Chris Logan about sprinkler. That's really weird." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool, man. Like, what do you think of it?" And then if they say something positive, I say, "Hey, that's me. That's awesome." And if they say something negative, which I love constructive criticism. I love negative feedback because it helps me learn. But I honestly want more of it. I get a lot of positive stuff and I want more negative. So feel free.
That's awesome, man. So
yeah.
Good. So do you see any marketing value for your sprinkler side from what you do with the podcasting, or just like you said, I know you said it gives you that credibility when you're dealing with those jurisdictional type of representatives. So I don't know if there's anything else as far as the marketing side that you've been able to see or point to specifically.
Well, it's helped a little bit with the marketing of my family business because I do use the podcast to our advantage when people are searching Google for anything sprinkler in Ontario. Number one, my podcast comes up, and then my family business is usually one or two right behind it, right? So it gets our name out there a lot more. There's, my brother's kind of old school, with still pen and paper on everything. He likes to do things. But he's starting to come around with somebody, we got a call the other day from somebody who wants us to price a condo that's going to be built up there. And my brother asked, where'd you get our number from? We've never worked, or where'd you get our number from, or contact information? We'd never worked with you before. And he's like, "Oh, I found it on Google." And he just admitted it yesterday, actually, that he's like, "You know what? Maybe this internet's not a fad." Like, "You're a dinosaur. What are you talking about?"
It's here to stay, we think. Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. You're the fact that you're talking not to something connected to a wall goes a long way.
That's funny. So let's get into the practical aspects of putting on a podcast. Can you kind of just overview what your process is, all the way from inviting the guests, preparing the podcast, to conducting it, to posting it, and all the things in between?
So I honestly, I tell myself every time I record and I start doing another episode is I still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. It's it's very much this is the most organized thing that I have, and it's my background. And it looks like a Zoom background meeting, but this is actually my garage. My wife loves it. But yeah, it's basically what happens now that I've gotten the credibility and I've done 70 episodes. Most of my guests reach out to me now. But if there is something new that catches my eye, I will reach out to a manufacturer and say, hey, like, can we talk about this? Do you want to talk about this? Are you interested? We schedule a pre-podcast meeting where we talk for 5 to 10 minutes with the person who's going to be the guest. What that does is get the conversational timing down so that you're not constantly talking over top of each other and stuff like that. And then depending on their availability, we'll either record that day or in a week if they have to get a little bit more information, send me a demo, send me a sample, something like that. And then essentially at the time of the call, we talk for 5-10 minutes before, just general conversation. And then we hit record and we talk until the conversation's done. And after 72 episodes, I can kind of get a feel for when the conversation has run its course. You can kind of like, hey, so do you still, do you like stuff?
Yeah.
That's when, know, it's time to wrap it up.
That's right.
But yeah. And then from there, I take the video file, I take the audio file, and then I use Adobe Premiere Pro, put the intro in, put any advertisers that I have in as well. And then I post it up. And like I said, I've been trying this year to post things on Wednesdays at 9:00 is when I try to release them, but family business. So if something comes up, I'll release it early, I'll release it late. But I'm trying to get something out within my product, my podcast every Wednesday. I'm trying to put something out for this year. That's my goal, is to get more content out there.
Awesome. So you do everything yourself. You don't have you don't outsource any of it to anybody else.
I wish.
All you.
I really wish I did. I wish I had that kind of capabilities, but it's my baby. So I as much as I know there's 1,000 people, a million, 2 million people out there that could do a way better job of the stuff that I do. It's just my baby. And I like to be able to say that I've done it. And you can tell that I've learned a lot from listening to the first episode. Don't listen to the first episode.
Yeah.
The best thing about my podcast is when I started talking to other people.
Yeah.
But you can see it from going from the first episode to going up to episode 72. And, I've had a couple people that I had one person recently, actually, Jim from AGF, said, oh, I was bringing my kid to college, and it was like a 6-hour car ride. And I just started your podcast when we left the house, and I finished it when we got back home, and I listened to your entire thing. And he's like, you've got some things that you constantly say over and over again. And man, the product has gotten better. I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm sorry for saying the same thing in every episode.
That's your trademark.
That's right. Yeah.
You did that on purpose.
Yeah, it's branding. It's called branding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Those are your little Easter eggs that people have to find.
Right. That's right. And they find them. Yeah, absolutely.
So what, I know a lot of podcasts, including yours, are on multiple platforms such as Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those things. How do you get it to all those platforms? Is there like an aggregator that does all that for you? Like you just put it in once and it sends it to those, or is there an individual process you have to do for each of those things?
So luckily, my website host, which is Squarespace, does a lot of that for me. It took a lot of behind the scenes on when I first got it up and running to put my RSS code into each of the websites. Mm-hmm. But after I got them put into, my RSS feed for Squarespace got put into iTunes and Spotify, and there's, I think, 4 or 5 that I had to manually do. It just launched them into essentially everything. Without me even knowing about it. I'm pretty sure I'm on Google Podcasts, and I don't remember specifically going there and putting any information in there. Yeah, which is cool as long as somebody else isn't making a bunch of money off of my feed. And then YouTube I have to do manually. And then just depending on the video file, if it's an hour and a half, it takes a little bit of time to upload. But if it's not, it's golden. Right.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. So tell us, I see you told us a little bit that you're in your garage, right? So tell us a bit about what you got. What kind of mic? I see you got a microphone there. It looks like it has a boom on it. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah. Maybe some special lighting if you use special lighting. So tell me some about what are the hardware you're using?
So 100%. If you're looking to start your own podcast, a cheap, you can get a $20 microphone and hook it up to your laptop, and you can record a podcast tomorrow. As the product has grown and as more people have started listening, I've invested sponsorship dollars and things like that into the product to make it a little bit better, to sound better audio quality, video quality, things like that. So I'm using a DSLR camera as a webcam. I used to use a webcam that was just connected to my laptop. I didn't really like the quality, so I've invested into a better camera. I've got video switchers here, which I haven't been able to utilize because I'm not at that point yet, but I have them. Audio mixers. I use a Rode Procaster, but these microphones are a couple $100 now. The booms are a couple $100, but they're all just making a better product. I want to be able to, when Canada opens its borders back up and I can travel again, go to the conferences with everything that I have and sit down with 4 people and record video and everything, and be able to go to a conference and pump out 5-6 episodes and have that content available, right? And help people learn more about the industry. Cause that's basically all I'm about is getting the information out to people.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit of that. It's probably comforting for people to know they don't have to go with the $400 microphone rig to start off with. They can go with the $20.
If my wife
rig
happens to be listening to this, like maybe $20, 20, 30 bucks.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Stay off the MasterCard receipt.
You mentioned something kind of quick, but I want to go back to, you talked about sponsorship dollars. So you don't have to get into monetary detail, but how do you go about procuring sponsorships? What does that structure look like? If someone's doing a podcast and say, man, I want to get some of these sponsored, how do I get into that?
So it really, the sponsorship came at about the halfway point, maybe 20, 30 episodes in, is when I started really getting the value for sponsorship. And I used to have 2 different models, which I did away with because I didn't really care for it immediately. Was I used to have like a guest fee. If you want to come onto the podcast and talk, it's this much. And if you want to sponsor the episode, it would be this much. But I've done away with that now, and I just have a sponsorship fee where if you want to buy an episode of the Fire Sprinkler podcast, it's this much. If you want to be a guest, if you want to come on my podcast and talk about fire protection, hit me up and we can chat. The only kind of disclaimer with that is for the, I'm a pretty nice guy. If you say, I don't want this guy to sponsor it, they're not going to sponsor it. But I do still have the people that have purchased blank episodes, and, they're willing to put them on anybody who wants to talk sprinkler.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's pretty good. And basically, like my sponsorship ads, like I said, this is not my full-time job. All this does is allows me to upgrade the equipment and create a better product.
All right, very good. No, I like that. And we're going to talk to, we'll close with, when we get to the closing, we'll have people where to find it, but also throw in there, mention where people can get more information about those sponsorships too, and how to get involved if they want to do that. But before we get there, what would you say if there's a company or an individual that wants to get into podcasting? What's one actionable step that they can do right now today? They can, as soon as we're done talking, they'll go and to get started. What can they do?
Pick up your phone. You have a audio recording on here. And just talk, just start talking. If you go back to my first 4 or 5 episodes, it's just me talking to a microphone about what I thought about certain things in the industry. You really don't have to have, Apple is also a business. The more product that they have available for their listeners, the more money they're going to make. So they're not like, nah, your product sucks, we're not going to let you host on iTunes. As long as it's not dead airspace, which I don't know why anybody would put that on, but you can put I literally have a podcast on the fire sprinkler industry. That's it. It's not anything else. It's not fire alarm. It's not foam. It's not extinguishers. It's sprinkler. And it's been fairly successful, more successful than I would ever imagine, which is mind blowing. And I still have to convince my wife that this is going really well. She doesn't, all she hears is me talking to myself out here because I listen to, I listen to the in-ear monitors, and she doesn't hear the conversations that I'm having. She's like, oh, he's still out in the garage talking to himself.
He's going crazy.
Oh God, what did I get myself into? But you just start it, please, for my sake and for my wife's sake. She can only listen to so many of my podcasts in the car when we're driving somewhere with the kids. So, the more fire protection based podcasts we can get out there, the better my wife's sanity is going to be. Yeah, just start talking and put consistent content out there, and the listeners will tell you if it's good or not. Trust me. Like if you have a good product, you'll get listeners, you'll get downloads, and if it's not, you won't. And then if nobody's listening, you're not going to continue on with it. It's everybody's got a little bit of pride if they like it or not.
Good. No, thank you for that advice. I think that's good. That's a tool we can go and start doing that right now with. So I appreciate that. So tell me a little bit about I always like the like and subscribe. Tell me a little bit about
that. My kid was out when I used to do this in my basement. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Kid, he was 4 or 5 years old, and I was out and I was just recording like an ad read for one of my customers, for one of my episodes, and he came down and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, you want to say something?" And he obviously is a kid. He's 8 years. He's 8 now.
Yeah.
So always on YouTube and stuff like that. And that's something that one of his YouTube shows that he constantly watches constantly always said is like and subscribe. Right. So I said, say something and I'll put it in an episode. And he said that. And I was like, that's going in every episode now. That's just what I'm going to do.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's cool. And nobody's really mentioned that part of the episode. And it's just a little thing that I put in there just for my own personal, when we're driving in the car, if I'm reviewing something before I post it, as soon as it pops up, he always embarrassed that Dad puts him on the podcast. But yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that you notice that.
Yeah, definitely. So you have the family sprinkler business now. He's going to be part of the family podcasting business.
That's right. Well, and regardless, they're 4th generation. Both of my boys are 4th generation sprinkler fitters. They just don't know it yet.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Very good. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Chris, you've given us a lot to think about, a lot of tools, a lot of really good advice, and some actionable stuff. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. As we kind of wrap things up here, is there anything else that you want to talk about that I didn't ask? Anything you want to add to? Go ahead and do that now, and just finish up by telling us where people can find you.
You can find me on all the forms of social media by simply going Fire Sprinkler Podcast, typing it into the search bar for iTunes, or not iTunes, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, anything else really out there. YouTube, Fire Sprinkler Podcast. If you could subscribe to that, that'd be great, because once I get to a certain amount, I can actually have that domain name, YouTube at Fire Sprinkler Podcast, whatever it is. And yeah, if you're ever interested in coming on the podcast and talking about something, reach out to me on social media, or Chris at firesprinklerpodcast.com. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. That's where you can listen to the episodes. And just thank you everybody for the support. It has been an unreal journey, an experience to be able to do this and to have people actually listen. And it doesn't happen a lot, but going to Disney down in Florida with my kids and my friends' families and stuff like that, and they see the hat and they're like, "Oh, where'd you get the hat?" And I was like, "I made it." I'm like, "Oh, does he know you made it?" Like when I first started, you can now buy hats in my store, firesprinklerpodcast.com. But it's having people just notice that brand recognition was awesome. The first time it happened, my friends were like, "Oh my God," like, "Oh geez, look at this guy." And then when we were in Disney for a week, and it happened like 2 or 3 times every day, right?
That's cool.
So it's weird. It's really weird.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's support, especially in the industry, the companies, the organizations, and the listeners as well. It's a wild ride.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you, and I thank you for everything you're doing for the industry, and we enjoy your podcast. So keep up the good work, and thanks again for your time. Thanks for agreeing to be part of this summit.
Yeah, a huge thank you for doing this and for thinking about me. Like I said, I don't really see myself as an influencer, and when you asked me if I'd be interested in doing this, I was like, why? Why do you what do you want to know about me? That's the least interesting person in the world. Just ask my kids. Uh, but no, I appreciate it. This has been good being on the opposite side of the screen, so to speak. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, again, we appreciate it, and we'll see you. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.